210.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another accredited episode of the Core Consults RX podcast. What's going on, everybody? Cole,
Good.
AJ.
It's kind of toasty in here.
It is, I know.
Is it the lights?
It's partly that and partly an issue with thermostat / AC up on this floor.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Because I know that you generally keep your house extremely cold.
I do. So my
Is it the dampers?
I don't know what it is. I just know that it's definitely hotter up here than it is downstairs.
We had the similar issue over the winter, where we have the dual thermostat. Y'all have that, right?
Yeah.
So you can control the top or the bottom. And it turns out our dampers were getting stuck, and so basically the heat was only going upstairs and not downstairs, and they had to go up there, and it's a very expensive fix. So I didn't do that. They just jammed them open. So
cool.
There's just no dual control anymore.
Ooh.
That could be what's going on.
Maybe. The thermostat that we had, that Nest thermostat thing, I think it's also having a problem holding a charge too, because like you can we'll take it off and plug it in and charge it up, but the battery
I guess I always presumed those just plug into a power line.
So that's what I thought too, because I assumed that
until it died.
Well, yeah, because then there was and then I noticed there's a charging port, and I'm like, Google hasn't been able to figure out how to make this charge off the wall, but I don't know. Whatever. I didn't do any research. I just thought it looked cool when I got it. But anyways, we're not talking about thermostats or AC units tonight. And if we're watching, live, we're going to try not to be sweaty up here. But we're actually going to be talking about the eyes tonight. We're going to be going over glaucoma, primarily focused on primary open-angle glaucoma. But we'll also touch on angle closure glaucoma as well towards the end, but we're going to do a rundown of all the medications, talk about any updates for new meds and things of that nature that maybe we haven't talked about previously. So I think we've covered this, and it's been a while.
Yeah, it's been like 4 years.
Has it been that long?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so hopefully some new stuff.
Maybe 3.
And who knows what we were talking about back then anyway.
Who knows what we were saying?
It was probably nonsense.
Don't go listen to those episodes.
That's probably a train wreck. But this is an accredited episode thanks to our friends over at freece.com. And so for those of you who are members of the website and are a gold or platinum member, so basically have unlimited access to all of their content, you can get access to our accredited episodes and the credit that come along with those as part of your membership. So once you're done listening to the podcast, at some point during the episode, we're going to give you a super secret password. Take that password after you've listened to the episode, go to FreeCE's website and use that to access the post-activity test. Past that, you get your 1 hour continuing education credit for pharmacists and nurses, and then you go on about your merry way.
I kind of like the super secret password thing.
Yeah.
It's almost like we're on Dora the Explorer, and you're going to find it later on. But is
that an integral part of Dora the Explorer? Do they have passwords?
They just they foreshadow things to come. But I will say that what
they foreshadow. That's a very, very intense look at Dora the Explorer.
What it reminds me of is what I used to really bug me in lectures when professors were lecturing is they would start to kind of talk about something and they would say, but we'll get to that later on. And I don't know why it would stress me out. Like, oh, this lecture's gonna be forever.
Why'd you even mention
it? We're not gonna talk about it for 45 minutes. Don't even bring it up.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
I feel like I do that sometimes. Like we
do that all the time.
We're gonna talk about that in a little bit.
We do, and I actually am very cognizant of that, and maybe I'll try to cut down on it. But we clearly do it with a super secret password.
And yet, this is the first time you've ever warned me about it. 220
A lot of things happen
up
here that don't come out of my mouth, and that's for the best.
We're supposed to be a team, but okay. That's fine. Just letting me put people in suspense for no reason. It's causing anxiety everywhere.
Maybe it's just me.
So we're going to be talking about glaucoma, and make sure you get your credit for those of you who are members. And if you're not, definitely check out their website and look at all the content they have available. Definitely worth the annual fee to get access to all that and become a member. So thanks to FreeCE for continuing to partner with us. Let's jump into this. Where do you guys want to kind of start? Just some basic background information?
Yeah, so we're going to do some background on what glaucoma is and why it happens, with one of the primary things being intraocular pressure, but that not being the only factor responsible for the development and progression of glaucoma. There's other things that contribute, like a decrease or dysregulated blood flow leading to ischemia, affecting the optic nerve, autoimmune reactions, excitotoxicity, things of that nature. I feel like the majority of the drugs, if not all the drugs, are going to be related to pressure.
Yeah,
right?
pretty much. Or relieving that pressure. They might come about it by different mechanisms,
Right.
but yes.
Their goal is relieving the intraocular pressure. Eventually what happens is this causes apoptosis of the retinal ganglion cells, and that leads to axonal degeneration. The end result can be permanent loss of vision, and we'll kind of talk about how that can be progressive, or in certain cases can be more acute.
Yeah.
Look at that. I just referenced what we're going to talk about later.
Unbelievable. You're such a hypocrite.
It's a complete hypocrite.
Unbelievable. So yeah.
It'll be like 2 minutes before we talk about it.
All right, cool. All right, that's not too bad.
Yeah.
We'll let that slide.
Yeah.
So kind of going a little bit more into the pathophysiology, I guess, when we talk about the optic disc, we typically think of it being composed of neurovascular and connective tissues. The axons of retinal ganglion cells, as Cole had mentioned, at the optic disc create the neural retinal rim, and then retinal ganglion cell axons exit the eye through the lamina I can't even talk tonight. Cribrosa,
Nice.
LC, forming the optic nerve, and then from there travel to the left and right lateral geniculate nucleus and thalamic relay nuclei for vision. Cole is usually the one that handles all these hard words. So
I'm the one who bungles all the hard words, so it's nice to see somebody else do it.
Yeah, it's great. But the optic neuropathy that's seen in glaucoma usually involves damage and remodeling of the optic disc tissues, as well as the lamina cribrosa. Eventually leads to the posterior displacement and thinned. It thins out that, we'll call it the LC. It thins out that LC, and then that can lead to that deepening of the what they call the cup and narrowing of the rim portion. And eventually downstream leads, like Cole said, to the atrophy and shrinkage and atrophy of target relay neurons in the lateral geniculate nucleus. I just pronounced the word and I can't do it again. And eventually it can lead to that vision loss. And ultimately, we're not going to ever fully reverse glaucoma, but we want to prevent the progression or slow the progression, if you will.
Sure.
So that the patient's obviously maintaining their vision and not having issues, progressing forward. But we're going to jump into these medications as we go through some of these, because there's a lot of them to cover. And unfortunately, patients end up being on a lot of different medications and combos of that.
Yeah. So we do have ways of measuring the intraocular pressure. And so we can kind of determine what a normal range is, or when it's too high or too low, that sort of thing. So normal range is 12 to 21 millimeters of mercury. A patient can have elevated intraocular pressure without having visual field loss. Some patients don't experience damage even at intraocular pressures greater than 21 millimeters of mercury. That would be considered ocular hypertension. Some patients have pressures 20 to 30 millimeters of mercury in that range for years before it progresses to having visual field loss. So as you can imagine, most people probably don't know that they have it unless it's specifically identified, or they start having visual field loss. Primary open angle glaucoma, like Mike mentioned, we'll mostly be talking about that because most of the drugs are related to that, is glaucoma in the presence of open anterior chamber angles. So increased intraocular pressure can be due to aqueous production, aqueous outflow, or anatomic and physiologic features of the trabecular meshwork and other outflow structures that are causing a buildup. Like I said, it's usually silent, usually progressive, which leads to it being one of the leading preventable causes of blindness in the world.
Yeah. So the other more severe, I guess, emergency situation would be primary angle closure glaucoma, which we'll touch on at the end, but we're not going to be focused on primarily. And that's where the channel that drains the aqueous humor is abruptly blocked. So you're going to have this really quick, sudden increase in intraocular pressure, and it can go significantly higher than we would typically see from like a chronic standpoint. So I mean, intraocular pressure is above 60 millimeters of mercury potentially, and when you're talking that high of an intraocular pressure, it can result in permanent loss of visual field within a matter of hours to days, but it ultimately needs to be handled very quickly, and it is a more emergency situation. Now, they do have secondary glaucoma as well, which, the channel that drains the aqueous humors is blocked due to inflammation that usually originates from some kind of like an injury or an infection. And so you'll have this gradual process that will slowly increase the intraocular pressure as well. So that would be like more of a primary glaucoma, but it's from a secondary, cause. And they do have secondary angle closure as well. And then there's also congenital glaucoma. So the channel that drains the aqueous humor is blocked due to genetic abnormality. And so patients will typically present with a cloudy cornea and have light sensitivity. So we're not going to go into any of that today. We're going to talk primarily about primary open angle mostly, and we'll touch on angle closure at the end.
Right. So going more into primary open angle, there are medications that can increase intraocular pressure.
There's not enough disk space to continue recording.
That's weird. Hit OK, and then hold the stream for a minute. Sorry, guys. We'll be back in a minute.
Need more gigs?
How is that possible?
How many gigs? I mean, I imagine you must have
4 terabyte.
Well, these are large files. I mean, do you ever delete them?
I haven't in a minute, but geez.
Your double? No, not even the double save. The disk space. Hold on, how do I find the disk space on here?
Just type storage.
Did you stop the stream?